Okay, so here's where the radical equations get a little bit more difficult. Anytime you have an x outside of the radical, that means that when you square both sides, you're going to wind up with an x squared somewhere in your equation, which means it'll be quadratic. So these first two, 5 and 6, those just have a single x, just by itself. So when you square both sides, first making sure that your radical is isolated, but it is, when you square both sides, you have an x squared. The radical goes away, so you have negative 5 plus 6x equals x squared. All right. For quadratics, we want to move everything to one side of the equation, and we always want to move it towards the quadratic, so that first term is positive. So I'm going to move everything else over. So I subtract a 6x, and I add a 5. All right, so all of this cancels. So basically I have x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. All right, to solve that, I need to factor it. Of course, you could use quadratic formula, that's fine, but all of these I'm going to give you are going to be fairly easy to factor. So I'm looking for numbers that multiply to 5 and add to negative 6, a pair of numbers. So I need 5, and I need to add to negative 6. In this case, that's negative 5 and negative 1. So that means I have x minus 5, x minus 1 equals 0, which means one of these two factors has to equal 0. So either I have x minus 5 equals 0, which gives me x equals 5, or I have x minus 1 equals 0, which gives me x equals 1. Before I can box those up, I have to actually check them by plugging back into the original equation. So I have square root of negative 5 plus 6 times my solution has to equal that same solution. Okay, so I'm going to try plugging in 5 first. I plug in 5 here and 5 here. So negative 5 plus 6 times 5 is 30. Negative 5 plus 30 is 25. So I have square root of 25 equal to 5. Is that true? Yes, square root of 5 is equal to 5. So that's true, and I keep this solution. But I have to do the same thing for the other solution. So I have my original equation is negative 5 plus 6 times x equals x. I'm just putting that blank in place of x, and I put my solution in there. All right, negative 5 plus 6 times 1. 6 times 1 is just 6. So negative 5 plus 6 is 1. I have square root of 1 equal to 1. Is that true? Yes, it is. And so I keep both solutions. So in this case, I got both solutions were good. I'm going to tell you right now, in quadratics, oftentimes one or both of the solutions will be extraneous. You might even wind up with no solution. But in this case, they're both good.